Live from Orlando, Florida, you're listening to the Orlando Magic HQ podcast, the voice of Magic fans. Join us every week for a unique fan perspective on all of the latest Magic news and updates. The show starts now.
What's up, Magic fans, and welcome to the Orlando Magic HQ podcast, brought to you by DraftKings and part of the Basketball Podcast Network. We're your hosts, Al, myself, Anthony. Today is Friday, January 20th. We are just finally done with the West Coast road trip, where we're finally back home in Orlando, and our guys are able to play back home. Man, that intro sounded a little weird, man. I'm not gonna lie. It's gonna take a little while to get used to. What's up, Al?
It definitely will. I don't know if you saw my face when you said it. I'm like, what? Well, what did you say? It's gonna take me a few episodes to. It'll take me maybe a couple of episodes for it to sink in and feel normal to us.
Yeah, officially the first official podcast or first official episode of Orlando Magic HQ, man. I once again, we just want to kind of echo what we've said the last episode, that we appreciate everyone's support, especially during this transition. We got a lot of really, really good feedback. A lot of messages and DMs and people kind of, saying that it makes sense, and we're happy that you guys are doing this. So we appreciate the love for sure. And quick shout out to our Patreon members: Blake Bickerstaff, Court Cousins, Steven, Casey Wood, Fins Fans for Life, Michael Martin, Jamel Miller, Mr. Mikey, Zico, Dylan, Yadi, and Yo Mama Mobamba. I appreciate, man, all the conversations that we have throughout the week on our Discord, man. It feels like it's just nonstop Magic basketball conversations just happening all week long, which is amazing. The tough part is where we've been kind of like on a hiatus for 4 days because there's been no basketball, nothing, zero. Al, what the hell have you been up to the last 4 days?
Man, it's been kind of weird. Like you said, it's no Magic basketball, but yeah, it's January. It's not like it's, the All-Star break or the off season. So it's kind of weird. I've just been taking care of myself, man. I've been working out, eating clean, and just getting ready. I think I told you yesterday, I got a vacation coming up here in a couple of weeks. So trying to fine tune some things and get in shape before I head out. But man, it feels weird. Like the nights are just like, what do I do with myself? There's no games to watch. There's no podcast to record except tonight. So it's feel weird. What about you? What's keeping you busy?
Yeah, so I've mentioned before, I got a newborn son, so he's been keeping me real busy. My wife has been loving the fact that there's been no Magic basketball for the last 4 days. If your significant other has been annoyed by the amount of basketball games that you watch or basketball games that you read about, or if you're on social media and it's Orlando Magic this, Orlando Magic that, then these last 4 days were a really good break for the significant others, because I know I hear it. Like, man, what is it that you're Orlando Magic really at 2:00 in the morning? Yes, at 2:00 in the morning, because it's what I look into at 2:00 in the afternoon, 3:00 in the afternoon. It's kind of like a revolving door, because it's nonstop information. The community is that big where the conversation is going. So my wife has appreciated the break, and now she kind of has to put that to the side, because now we're at home and a lot of things are happening. I told her that the NBA trade deadline is right around the corner, and my wife knows that when it comes to the trade deadline, I don't play about the trade deadlines.
No joke.
I'm locked in. I'm on my phone way more than I need to be. I'm feeling like Waj. I'm feeling like Shams. I'm keeping an eye on everything. I always talk about, like, the NBA is one of the best soap operas you can ever get involved in, just because there's so much drama and so many storylines that happen throughout the season, that it's never ending. Even when the season ends, there's still drama going on. You know what I mean? So that's kind of what I've been up to, man. It's kind of refreshing to not do too much of the outside work that we do, the additional extra criteria that we do outside of our actual careers. But it's definitely back to the grind. We had Jonathan Isaac that just played yesterday, Thursday night. We'll talk about that in a few, but it's been nice for that break, and now it's time to get back on the grind.
I will say, I forgot to mention that's been keeping me busy. So I actually made it out to Lakeland on Saturday. I said unplanned trip that came up with some friends. Unfortunately, you couldn't make it out there with us, but it was a good time, man. I got to go to Lakeland for the first time and catch a game out there, trying to see what JI looked like in person, and that was a good time. So if you follow us on social media, you saw some of the videos that we took. Lou was out there too, doing some footage for us. Amazing content as always. But yeah, that was unique. I will say a unique experience making it out to Lakeland. I don't know why it brought me back to like my high school basketball days where you go like on a bus to this gym to play with your teammates. It kind of gave me that vibe, but it was a cool experience. Seats were like $30 and we were like 2 rows away from center court. So that was fun. So if you're trying to catch a basketball game, see, Caleb Houston is out there right now, Kevon Harris, JI. So if that continues, definitely make it out there, man. Support the Lakeland guys. It's a fun experience to do once or twice a year. I wouldn't do it more than that, but it's fun to do for sure.
Yeah, the only issue, man, is that Lakeland is, it's pretty far, but it's not too far. You know what I mean? It's like an hour drive. I was kind of looking at the team that Lakeland just recently played at the Sioux Falls. I'm sure I'm butchering the name, but that's the Miami Heat's G League, and that team is all the way in South Dakota. Like, what the hell is the benefit of having a G League team in South Dakota? Granted, Miami is a team that they really don't need to send players back and forth, not as much as we do. But man, there's zero convenience in that. Man, it's crazy how teams really don't have the luxury of what the Lakeland Magic and the Orlando Magic have. I'm not sure what the distance are for other professional teams in the NBA, but literally. It does remind me of kind of like a high school. You've had for anyone that's played in high school, you've had those players that played on the JV team, but also played on the varsity team. You would play in the JV and then play for varsity. Like if they really wanted to, you played on Wednesday at Lakeland and then Thursday drive your happy ass over to Orlando and play in the NBA. And that's a cool thing that we're able to send Caleb Houston, RJ Hampton, Kevon Harris and Schofield eventually, once their time runs up as a two-way player. That flexibility is what really allows for that development to happen. So that's it's something that we really should be grateful that we have, because again, Miami, South Dakota, mad distance, which is crazy to me. But anyways, man, let's talk about Orlando Magic basketball. So in today's episode, we're going to break down, finally finishing our road trip, our West Coast road trip. We'll summarize some of Jonathan Isaac's stats in Lakeland. We won't dwell too much into that. And then the rumor mill is already kind of running, man. We've already heard some rumblings from Shams and ESPN. They've been throwing out their crazy trade suggestions, and we'll talk about what they had to say there. But before we get into that, tell me, finally, road trip is done. When it comes to that road trip, the Magic ended up being 2 of 3 in the West Coast, far away from home. Sound like a Spider-Man movie. But what were your takeaways from that road trip? I know it's a little disappointing because there were a lot of games in that road trip that we feel like we should have won. We probably should have been, 4-1, but it didn't work out that way. But what were your thoughts from that road trip?
Yeah, I mean, you got to think about the fact that the only really game that we were not in was the Kings game. That game, unfortunately, we lost, big blowout, beginning to end. No question, we lost that one. We beat Golden State, we beat Portland, really good wins. But unfortunately, the last 2 games, you think about Utah, we lost that one 112-108. The way I better describe it is the lack of rebounding cost us that game, especially at the end. Mo Bamba couldn't secure that rebound there at the end after a few missed free throws. And then, unfortunately, they hit the following free throws after we fouled them, and that's the game. But also want to really, really highlight a big talking point that night on Twitter. The NBA referees, man. I don't know the crew that called that game, but I just got to say, what an awful job that crew did that night. Just looking at it now, the Magic took 16 free throws that night. Lauri Markkanen by himself took 21, but that's not it. The Jazz took 40 free throws that game. So when you lose a game by 4 points and you go back and you look at free throw differences and you look at a 16 to 40 free throw difference, that is incredible. And it's not only that, man. The amount of times the Magic just didn't get the whistle when they deserved it. There was a goaltending call against France that was not called. There was a foul, clear foul late in the game against Markel Fultz that was not called. They actually stepped out of bounds, the Jazz did, late in the fourth quarter. It was not called. So it's unfortunate. It's one of those games where you say, you know what, the refs got involved. But yet, even then, the Magic were in the game. Again, it came down to rebounding when it mattered most. They fought back in that game. They competed. But again, it's unfortunate that it came down to us talking about the referees in that game. It should have come down to that. But really, really a great game by France. Once again, 26 points. Markel Fultz had an amazing game in that game as well. Actually, sorry, that was the next game. Banchero, 19 points. Wendell, 19 points. So again, the big three, as I call them, France, Banchero, Wendell. Markel's a fourth piece. Really solid game. The Magic, again, gave themselves a chance. Unfortunately, the ball didn't bounce their way at the end, and they lost that game. And then, actually, before I go into the Denver game, what were your thoughts on the Jazz game? Any kind of takeaways for you?
Man, if there's one pet peeve that I have, is definitely the rebounding of the team, the allowing the second chance points. It drives me absolutely insane because we're a big basketball team, and you would automatically think that, because we're a big basketball team, that we would just out rebound the crap out of every team that we play against, and that's just not the case. We selected a team that is half of the team is damn near above 6'10". Wingspan was a priority. But yet the second chance points just keeps allowing to happen. These are things that you're going to struggle with, and I understand that we will struggle with it as a young team, but it's definitely something that, one, we have to address either by development or by additions to the team. But it's just something that has to change. Like, I don't want to automatically think that, man, it's effort, because obviously it's not physical, it's not body, because we have the size. It's one thing if you have a bunch of Cole Anthonys running around and you're not getting rebounds. I understand that, right? But we're a big team. There's no excuses for the rebounding, and we just keep getting out hustled every single game. And it's something that needs to be a priority for the Orlando Magic. Because when it comes to ranking, I'm not sure where it was the last time I saw it. I think we were at 20, 21, 22, around there in the league. So there are teams that are doing worse than we are, but it still has to be something that we get better at. And I'm hoping that it's something that we see improve, because we can't just rely on Wendell Carter to grab all the rebounds. We can't. He's easily our best rebounder, but it's not enough. Paolo Banchero comes second. I believe he's at the 6 or 7, followed by Bobo. But it's not. It has to be a collective effort. Every single person has to be able to find their man and put a body on them to be able to get the rebound. Cole Anthony, for the most part, does an okay job around when it comes to rebounding the basketball, with him being 6 foot. But collectively as a team, we have to get better, and that's really one of the biggest things that stood out to me. Just because it's a struggle, and it's a continued thing over and over and over, and it feels like in crunch time, when we need to rebound the basketball the most, is where we kind of fall in that department, and the team, suffers from it.
Yeah, I mean, so to quickly highlight the major difference that it was in that game, 59-40, the rebound differential in that game. So a 19 rebound difference. Again, you add to that the amount of free throws that Jazz also got on top of that. It's hard to win that game. I'm surprised it came down to a final possession, because, again, the Magic, based on numbers, should not have been in that game. And then you end the road trip in Denver, and that game again came down to the wire. In the first half, it looked like Denver was going to run with that game and just run outside of the gym. We bounced back in the third quarter. We won that third quarter 34-25, and then the fourth quarter came down to a final possession. Nikola Jokic, MVP for a reason, brought the ball up, got the ball in the final possession, and drilled a three with France all over him. I don't know how he hits those shots, man, but he finds a way to hit them. And unfortunately, we lost a really, really tough game where it felt like we had a chance. And unfortunately, they ripped our hearts right at the end there. But a really good game in this one by Markel Fultz, really led the way for us. And he's been really consistent. That Utah Jazz game, he kind of struggled a bit. But in this one, he bounced right back. 20 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists. 8 for 10 from the field, 1 from 1 for 3-point range. And then you also have Franz and Paolo again, 19 points for Franz, 18 for Paolo. And the man of the night, I think I called it during that game, but Ball, 17 points, 6 rebounds in that game.
Good
Coming
for
back
him.
home. Yeah, going back home to Denver, the team that drafted him, traded him pretty much for nothing. And he showed them, hey, you might have made a mistake here. I get it. They didn't need him. They're trying to win, not really develop players. But man, this kid definitely went back, and you could see that he was playing with a
Dunking
fire.
on left and right. It was
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah, you love to see it because you can tell that Bobo is a good kid. Yeah, he was ranked highly in high school, very, very high. And then college, he suffered the injury, and then his stock kind of fell. And then he really wasn't given an opportunity in Denver. And I think that that's definitely a game that Bobo circled. And he made sure to be able to show his impact. And you can tell that even, Nikola Jokovic was getting a little pissed off and irritated about it. But I think that overall it was a really good basketball game. Obviously, Denver is one of the elite teams in the NBA, multi-time MVP player in Nikola, and it's one of those things where if you're going to lose a basketball game away on a West Coast road trip, and you're going to lose by a 3-point shot, how mad could you be that it's against?
You take it.
Yeah, it is what it is, right? It's a game that we didn't even think we were going to have a chance at. And the fact that we went out there and we battled, kudos to the Orlando Magic, because that was definitely a well-fought, hard game. And, it would have been good, though. It would have been really good to get that win with Aaron Gordon, man, because every time he smirks or he tries to get into it, one of our players, it annoys me. It annoys me so bad. The way that Aaron Gordon left the Orlando Magic left such a sour taste in my mouth that it's just, I can't, there's nothing in me that afterwards, like Nikola Vucevic, I hope that he does great. I still root for him, and I hope that he finds success. Evan Fournier, but he loves Orlando, so I hope he finds success. Aaron Gordon, I wish that he wasn't playing as great as he's playing. I'll be honest with you.
I hear you, man. I think the team is making him look better than what he actually is. If you look at his stats, they're no different, truly, than what he was in Orlando. Like, he's putting up this 15-point games, 8 rebounds. Paul George type. Instead, he is a typical forward in the NBA that averages, 14, 15 a game and grabs 7 rebounds. I think the expectations were always higher on him, including himself. He thought he was better than what he actually is. I'm happy for him that he's competing in the West, that he's doing okay. But to your point, I don't want to see him win. Just the way that he left Orlando, to me, left a bad taste in my mouth as well.
Yeah, and Nikola had some interesting quotations post game that he said, not necessarily in reference to the Magic, but obviously you're talking about the Magic, where he says the good teams will find a way to win even if they play bad, and the bad teams will find a way to lose. And it's a double-edged sword, because you're not wrong. Like, he's not wrong. He's not inaccurate with what he's saying. It's just in that moment where your team does play bad or doesn't play the great like they're supposed to be, right? The Magic did a great job at playing against that team, and they struggled against the Orlando Magic. There's a reason why you play bad. It's not always just your shots aren't falling. It could be because players are closing out more. It could be because they're defending better. It could be a different amounts of magnitude why a team isn't playing great. In a moment where he could have celebrated or gave some type of compliment to an up-and-coming Magic team, decides to call us a bad team and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, that's the one thing that I wish, like, as an MVP in the league, I'm tired of these MVP players just dogging the Magic. It just continues to happen, from LeBron to now him and
Draymond.
Yeah, he's not MVP, but yes, another top player in the league. Not saying nice things about the Magic at some point, and we've already seen a lot of that happen this season, where people are starting to change, the narrative of things that they say. I just wish that that comment was kind of just scrubbed and not ever said out loud in public and recorded.
Yeah, especially when again they had a double-digit lead most of that game in the first half, especially, and they lose it. So it's not like they played bad the whole game. They had a big lead. The Magic just simply fought hard, played hard in the second half, made it into a game, and almost beat you at your home court. So give credit to the team. I get it. That's what he said. I don't agree with it. But to your point, wouldn't have hurt for the MVP to say, "Hey, good job by that young team coming in here, fighting hard, and making us work for the win." That's all.
Yeah. Now, again, great that Bobo had a really strong game. He was out for a little bit due to him not feeling well, being out with the health and protocol. But is it time to put Bobo back into the starting lineup? Or do you like kind of what you've been seeing with, having a more traditional shooting guard in the lineup?
So being honest, I feel bad because he didn't necessarily do anything wrong to be taken out of the starting lineup. He simply got COVID, unfortunately, or that's what it seems like. But you can't deny the Magic have played better with a traditional shooting guard in the lineup. So that would be Gary Harris. And when you look at the stats too, the Magic have the second best starting lineup in the NBA right now, metrics wise, when they have that lineup of Markel, Gary Harris, Franz, Paolo, and Wendell. So kind of hard to argue right now that is not your go-to lineup. And mind you, in my opinion, Gary Harris has been struggling. Like, he hasn't really been hitting threes that much. He hasn't really been scoring 15, 18 a night. He's scoring like 5, 7 points. But his presence on the court makes you guard him on the three-point line. He plays hard on defense, and that alone makes him a tough player to replace in the starting lineup. So in my opinion, I think Ball needs to embrace, kind of like what we're asking Cole Anthony to do, embrace that off the bench role where you come in, you give us a spark off the bench. We kind of feature you more than we can feature you next to Paolo and Franz. And kind of, for now at the very least, embrace that role, because I don't see him, unless injuries happen, coming back into the starting lineup, even though he was doing well. But his defensive lapses, his lack of awareness on defense was hurting him a little bit. Let's not lie about that. But on the offensive end, the way that he was playing, the highlights, that's also fun to watch. So in my opinion, keep him on the bench for now. Let's see what we got here with this traditional starting lineup that we've been rolling out the last 2 weeks and a half.
Yeah, I mean, Bobo is a success story for this team. He exceeded everyone's expectation, except for maybe 2 people that I can think of. The fact that he's playing at the level that he's playing at is great, and should be celebrated. He's currently second, right behind Lauri Markkanen, from my understanding, when it comes to point differentiation. When we look at the stats from last season, so again, should be celebrated. At the same time, Bobo is not perfect. He's still a rookie in my eyes, where there's still a lot of mistakes, and those mistakes are happening on the defensive end. He's a highlight reel waiting to happen, and it's fun to watch, and he deserves to have minutes. We've tried him in the starting lineup. We saw a lot of things that we liked, a lot of things that we didn't like. I think it would be best for him to come off the bench. Here's what I like about the Bobo experiment that we did, right? Is with Bobo in the lineup, it forced Franz to play that 2 position. And I think that it was a good trial before we utilize the exact same lineup with, dare I say it, Jonathan Isaac. Because that would essentially be the player in that lineup that you would be replacing. So I think that eventually, at some point, I'm not saying that that's going to be the starting lineup, but eventually at some point we are going to see that lineup on the floor. And I think that, we've saw a glimpse of where, there was a world that was successful, and it did work and it did help. But as of right now, I think that, Bobo coming off the bench and having a more traditional shooting guard is definitely the route forward.
I think so too. I mean, the argument could be made, and I'll ask you this question. What do you think though about Jalen Suggs? And I'm only thinking of the point that, hey, this kid was the 5th pick in the draft last year. Franz is doing well. Paulo's doing well. Should we feature him more in the starting lineup to kind of see what we really have once he's healthy? We know he's still not 100% yet from his ankle, but what are your thoughts on that? Should we look into, maybe in a few weeks, whatever it may be, bring back Suggs into the starting lineup instead of Gary Harris, or are you more comfortable with Gary Harris playing the shooting guard position?
The balance of Gary Harris is that he may not be he may not be producing how we want him to produce, but he's still a veteran presence. He's still a 3-point threat. Like, you still have to respect it, even though he's not playing well. It's just something that you still have to do. With that said, since this is a developing year, and yet we're still have playing hopes. Yeah, I would love to see him. Like, to me, honestly, man, starting really doesn't matter. Like, in basketball, starting doesn't matter. It's more of a pride ego thing. But let me ask you, and I'm sure that collectively we'll all agree to the same thing. What's more important, starting or minutes? If you're a starter, but you're only playing, 25 minutes, but you're coming off the bench and you're playing 35 minutes, wouldn't you care to have more minutes on the floor than actually starting?
I think that's what every player wants, is to play more, right? So I think it's an ego thing at that point. You want your name to be introduced, at the beginning of the game. That's really what it comes down to. But like, I feel Cole Anthony has that issue right now where I think he wants to be a starter. But if you look at his minutes, he's getting a ton of minutes, maybe more than he should, the way that he's been playing lately, if you ask me. But I think for Cole at this moment, he's young. He still wants to just be out there with a starting lineup when his name is called, but he's getting a ton of minutes. So to your point, I think Jalen Suggs, the same thing is happening there. I think he needs to get more minutes eventually when his ankle is healed, because we're putting a big investment in him. He's a guy that there were comparisons to Dwayne Wade, comparisons to Marcus Smart. Like, if that ever comes to fruition, and now you say you also have Paolo, Franz, Markelle, and Wendell to round that up, man, like, all of a sudden the Magic have struck gold, which that's the ultimate goal, right? Like, use the draft, develop your team. That's the way that you win in this league for a long time. We need that pick to work out. The last thing we need is for Suggs to come in and be hurt all the time, not be able to stay on the court, because that's going to derail things for us. Thank God Franz has worked out. But imagine if Franz and Suggs work out for us. That would be incredible.
Yeah, Suggs has played a total of 68 games. So again, another player in my eyes I still see as a rookie. He still needs time to figure it out. He has to stay healthy. That's the biggest thing. And then you see him out there, and he still plays a little too wild for my liking, where it feels like every play we're on the brink of him getting injured or re-hurting himself. So do we want him to develop? Absolutely. Does he have to start? No. But he should definitely get the minutes, because he is, in my opinion, still an important aspect of this team moving forward in the future. You can't write him off. You just can't, because a player that he is now, 100%, I guarantee you, it's not going to be the same player that we see, year 3, year 4, so on and so forth. So as long as he gets some minutes, I'm cool with it.
Yeah, and it may not even have to be just for the Magic. Think about this. It's a trade piece too. It's a guy that came to the league with a ton of potential. Other teams around look at him as a trade piece that, hey, they're like, if we could get our hands with him, we can probably make him work. We can heal him here in Toronto or Boston, whatever it may be. And all of a sudden, it gives you a chip that you can trade and get something good in return. So we need that to work out also. Again, if he's hurt all the time, kind of like J.I., unfortunately, let's not use a comparison, but let's use it for a second here. It hurts you because you've put in so much into this kid, high draft pick. The last thing you need for that to just completely go into having no value. So again, we just need to stay healthy, be on the court, figure things out. One big thing for him, he's figured out his mid-range shooting. That's amazing. We need that to extend to the 3-point line maybe by next year, and also finishing better at the rim. If he can do those two things and play the kind of defense that he can play, man, like, this kid is going to be a great fit next to Paolo and Franz.
Yeah, because his field goal percentage definitely went up. He went from 36% last season to 41%. So there's definitely been a huge improvement there. And the thing about these lottery guys, the rookies and the young guys in this league, is that if they just don't work out with their first team, you still have that potential title that's still like lingering. Is it in the environment? Is it they weren't utilizing him right? So that value, in my opinion, it does hurt when they don't play well. Like, obviously, Jalen Suggs' value today doesn't weigh as much as Jalen Suggs' value when we first drafted him. But there's still always going to be value there, which is a little scary. Just because, the NBA trade deadline is around the corner, something that we've always talked about. Is it time? Not is it time? It is time to start doing some consolidation. The Magic have a lot of young pieces. We have a lot of guards. There's a lot of different things that we're looking at where we know in the future where we're going to be adding 2 additional rookies to this team, potentially 2 additional rookies to this team. The Magic are going to have to look at consolidating. Now, Shams from The Athletic reported that Fred VanVleet is linked to the Orlando Magic in free agency. The Suns and Magic have emerged as potential free agent suitors for all-star guard Fred VanVleet. So my question to you, and for the most part, from what I've seen, read, heard, not a lot of people are too fond of Fred VanVleet. But what are your thoughts of it? Do you think that would be a good move for the Orlando Magic?
I would tell you, if you can get him on a team-friendly contract, maybe.
What's a team-friendly contract to you?
It's got to be something like what we signed Vooch for. So that may be 110 for 4 years, something along those lines. I just don't think this is the guy that you've been saving, all this cap space for and being so careful for about not making the wrong moves to then come up and tell me that the guy you're going to go after is Fred VanVleet. Like, no disrespect. He can put up some great numbers. He's done so for the Raptors.
You're being mad disrespectful.
Not at all. I'm just going to say, though, is he like that guy? And his age, too, doesn't really fit our timeline. But then I understand that we need some vets. I get that. I don't know, man. Unless there's more to the story that I'm not aware of, like our front office was part of getting him to Toronto. They knew him. They wanted him badly to the Magic, and we couldn't sign him years ago. I don't know if there's some story to it that we don't know about. But based on what I know, not the guy that I would want to give the bag to, as they say, right? And throw the bag at this kid and give him $130 million. Like, I feel like there's better players out there that complement our team better. And this front office is all about length, defense, competitiveness. I don't see that when it comes to VanVleet, right? It says 5'11" guy, can shoot a little bit, not necessarily an incredible shooter, but he can shoot it a little bit. So I don't know. If you ask me, he's not the guy that I hope the Magic have been saving their cap space for. I think they can either wait another year or find a different player. Just my take. What about you?
So you're being disrespectful because he's not 5'11". He's 6'1". So
no, he's not. No, he's not.
He's 6 in the NBA. He's 6'1". You put the shoes give you a couple extra inches. That's the way it works.
I've seen him in the court warming up, and I'm taller than him, and I'm 5'11". So I don't know how that happens.
So I do agree with you when it comes to a team-friendly deal. Here's the thing, that there was already a contract on the table, not from my understanding, not from an official capacity, but there was a contract already on the table from the Raptors to Fred. I believe it was for 120. I think 110. Like that, let's just say 110, between 110 and 130. Let's say that. And Fred decided not to do the extension or not to do the signing. He wants to wait until the end of the season, right? He's kind of betting on himself. Bad year to bet on yourself because he hasn't had the best, season this year. Now, you could blame that on a lot of different factors. The Raptors collectively, they haven't been playing good basketball. They're looking to blow that team up. When you look at teams in the NBA trade deadline on who to look for, who's going to be doing the most moves, everyone is eyeing the Raptors. All right. Now, some pros from Fred. Hold on, let me see if I can think of a few. No, I'm just kidding. Pros of Fred is the fact that he is an NBA champion, right? He is an NBA All-Star. He is a veteran. Here's my thing. Yes, it needs to be a team-friendly deal. As of right now, a rival team could offer Fred VanVleet for 4 years a maximum of $172 million. We're not giving him that. The Orlando Magic have done, if there's one thing about this front office, they haven't overpaid not one person. They've been very financial savvy. I don't see us throwing a max steal on a 28-year-old 6'1" point guard. I just don't see that happening. Now, with that said, is if there could be like, what would be an amount? I could consider, 100 to 120, like the same contract. There's no way that Fred is going to want to stay in Toronto, right? Especially when they start trading people left and right. There's just no way. I don't see it. So if that was a contract that was on the table for Toronto, he didn't accept it. Maybe with him playing bad this season, that's kind of the cap of the max that you would give him. Now, this is kind of my thought process, right? If the Magic did go for Fred and they say, we think that he can lead this team, we think that he can be the point guard that can elevate the team, whatever, right? So that automatically means that Cole Anthony is gone. In my opinion, you sign Fred, you're moving Cole Anthony, because you can't have 2 6'1" point guards. Like, it's just a bad idea. You can't have positionless, leaning into positionless basketball, and you have a 6'10" forward and a 6'10" another forward and another 6'10". Your head coach is damn near 6'10". Like, you just can't do that and then have 2 really, really small point guards. I just don't see that happening. Now, do you believe that Cole Anthony cannot get to a Fred VanVleet point in his career? I think it's the first question that you have to ask yourself. If you say no, then okay. If you say yes, then why are we even having this discussion? Now, if you look at Fred VanVleet and you're not confident that Cole Anthony could eventually get to that point, then you would be signing a player that has already shown that he's comfortable coming off the bench, and 2, an insurance policy in the event that Markelle can't stay healthy. That would be the only benefits that I would see from it. He is someone that is an offensive weapon that can definitely shoot from behind the 3-point line, that can really help stretch the floor. Has he shown that this season? No, everyone has a bad season. The Raptors are just a cluster right now, so you can't really hold too much of that to him. At the same time, do we really, like, by the time that you make the decision to sign a player, you're already going through your draft process. Like, if we end up drafting a point guard in the draft, and we're having this conversation for absolutely no reason, because it's not happening.
Yeah, and I will tell you 2 things. I don't think VanVleet will come to Orlando to come off the bench, right? Because I'm like, number one, he's going to be making $110, $120 million to come off the bench. Like, that wouldn't make too much sense. When you're already paying a guy like J.I. that, let's assume he stays coming off the bench as a backup center, getting a ton of minutes, I don't know. There'll be 2 guys making crazy amounts of money. That, number one, would have to come off the bench, or that's the expectation that we have. Number 2, the Cole Anthony situation. Can he ever be as good as VanVleet? Honestly, man, like, I love Cole, but that's a tall order. This is an NBA champ. This is an all-star, proven player in the league. I hope so.
You're being disrespectful again. Why does it have to be a tall order?
Dude, like, let me ask you this right now. Do you think Cole Anthony can be an all-star within 3 years?
Not for the Orlando Magic. I think we've already positioned his Paolo, his Franz, and his Hart to kind of fit the next person in, especially when you see that this draft is coming up. Like, if I'm Cole Anthony, I'm already not happy with my position and kind of how everything's kind of playing out. And then 2, this draft that's coming in, like, with Cole Anthony, they had already drafted another guard in Jalen Suggs. Then on top of that, this is a loaded guard draft. The Magic will be drafting a guard. It's going to happen. So I don't know if it happens. It's hard to see the route, the direction for that to happen here.
So that's why, again, in my mind, instead of throwing all that money to VanVleet again, I just don't see it, man. I'd rather that money go to a guy maybe like Middleton of the Bucks, who'll be a free agent as well. It's a 2 guard, can hit the 3, an NBA champ also. If he's willing to listen, mind you, our front office is the one that gave him that chance in Milwaukee. So if he's willing to listen to us, and you're debating between Middleton or VanVleet,
is he willing to listen?
I don't know.
Is he willing to listen? 100%. 100%.
But Are
I
we
think
even
at least a
sure?
conversation does happen.
Yeah. So like, are we even sure these rumors are true about VanVleet? We know that the Magic do not leak anything, right? So this is not coming up from I heard from a Magic front office, staff member. No, it's assumptions based on the fact that we got money to spend. We could use a point guard or shooting guard upgrade. So hey, VanVleet may be a name that comes to mind. But so if you ask me, this is all smoke. It's not going to happen. I just don't see the Magic again being so careful all these years to then blow their cap space on a guy that again is 28 years old, has been dealing with some knee injuries, has been declining shooting wise. It wouldn't be the right move if you ask me. If it happens, I'll support him. I'll know the front office do their due diligence. They have a reason why they're doing this. But if you ask me, it will not happen. I don't think he's the guy that the Magic need to take us to the next level.
Yeah, here's the thing. The Magic have money. They're going to have to start using that money. They're going to have to finally start spending big. Doesn't have to be this offseason. It does not. In my opinion, it doesn't. They can, like, the team is still being structured. The thing is that since what makes it hard is our draft position, and since we don't know exactly who we're getting, who's going to fit, like, in my opinion, it would be unwise to really trade anyone just yet. That's why I don't feel like this NBA trade deadline. I don't think that the Magic are going to make a lot of moves. Like, I can't see us doing a big move just because whoever we end up drafting, it could change and alter the way that this team looks, feels, fits, everything. And it's a good problem to have. Like, if you're expecting the Magic to make a big deal, why when we have this draft, and this draft is a really good draft where the Magic will be able to add hopefully two really, really good players. And I think that should be the priority. Now, with that said, Bobby Marks from ESPN, he had his NBA trade guide or whatever for the Southeast Division. He had a video about 10 minutes just talking about the different teams in the division. And for the Magic, he suggests he kind of mimicked the same thing where he didn't think something big was going to happen. But maybe the Magic do make a move of Terrence Ross. And the suggested trade that he had was Terrence Ross to the Lakers for Patrick Beverley and a second round pick. And I feel like Patrick Beverley is what's the word? He's kind of like he's a player that you don't like, but you would like if you got to know him, right? If he was on your team, you would like Patrick Beverley.
For
right?
sure.
His antics, you would accept his antics. Like, I'm sure there's a lot of fans out there. I'm sure there's a lot of teams out there. I'm sure all of the Boston Celtics really do not like Mo Wagner. Like, I'm really, really sure, right? I feel like the Detroit Pistons fan base really don't like Mo Wagner, right? But we love Mo Wagner. We like his hustle. We love his energy. We love the fact that, he plays really good basketball for us. The fact that he's Franz's brother is a plus. So on and so forth, right? But I'm sure that if he played for another team and he got into it with, Jalen Suggs, we would hate him. I feel like Patrick Beverley has that special charisma. But I also think that Patrick Beverley has some things that you would like in a player. Like, Patrick Beverley, whether you like him or not, he's a dog. And the Magic, I wish we had more. Like, we have dogs, but this dog in particular, he barks. Like, he barks loud, right? You would prefer a dog that barks and bites, right? But he's at least he's passionate, which I do like. He's someone that's going to stand up for his team. Like, he doesn't make millions of dollars. He doesn't make like crazy money like the big names. So the fact that he's into every situation where he kind of puts himself in a position where he could get fined is kind of like not the best financial move for him, but he does it. He does it because he fights for his team. He's someone that I think that, would do well with a young team. Do I want him with the Orlando Magic? Probably not. Nah, probably not. Like I would prefer, like in that situation, I would prefer Cole Anthony because you make that trade, then you're gonna have Patrick Beverly, Jalen Suggs, Cole Anthony, Markelle Fultz. Like you're adding another guard that struggles to shoot. Like it wouldn't make sense at that point. You would have to make another move to be able to make the space because there's not going to be any minutes for him.
Yeah, I think if you make that trade and you're the Magic, you're making it for financial reasons, meaning you're just going to cut Beverly after the trade and just, he's going to be a free agent at the end of the season. You move on. It wouldn't really be like for him to actually come to Orlando and be like a role model or like a locker room guy, unless, like you mentioned, you make other moves and you clear some space for him to be a player that plays for the Magic. But I would love to see Beverly and Mo Wagner together on the court off the bench, leading that unit and creating chaos off the bench. That would be fun to watch. But now, man, in a realistic world, I don't think the Magic make that trade. We've seen Ross linked to the Lakers for 3 years now. I think that trade eventually will happen. I just don't know what we get back in return. I wouldn't be surprised if it would be just simply a guy that we waive and it's a salary move. But then again, he's a free agent at the end of the year. Did you just let him walk at the end of the year for nothing then in that case? I don't know.
I mean, we would be letting Terrence Ross walk.
That's what I'm saying.
Like that deal, like that specific suggested trade, the benefit that I see from it is that you get, a second round pick with it. One that comes from the Chicago Bulls, which that's another moment that we're able to stick it to them a little bit. But I don't know. I agree that I can see Terrence Ross being traded to, the Lakers, but for Patrick Beverly, like at first I'm like, oh man, that's interesting. But the more I sat on it and thought about it, I'm like, yeah, pass.
Yeah, it's an interesting proposal. Again, I don't see how it makes sense for the Magic unless you make all the trades or unless you tell Beverly, hey, your role here is going to be a vet on the locker room, guide these guys for the rest of the year. That's what we need from you. We don't need to come in here and play, 20 minutes a night. And he's okay with that. If that is the case, maybe you consider it. Just kind of teaches guys something about being tough and playing hard. But other than that, I don't see the reasoning behind it. And to your point, trade deadline 3 weeks away. The only good thing I see is that we are seeing some things kind of take shape. We're seeing some guys that definitely are going to be here long term. We're seeing some guys that are unfortunately playing themselves out of that opportunity. You talk about RJ Hampton. We still don't know what's happening there, but unfortunately, there seems to not be a future for him in Orlando. Chuma Okeke, we heard that he unfortunately has not progressed yet to on-court work. He's still dealing with a knee injury, the knee surgery that he had back in December. So, do the Magic consider that and say, hey, enough waiting for this guy? We're ready to move on. Mo Bamba, the laziness, the lack of awareness on the court, that continues. This is year 5, 6 for him. So is it ever going to kick in his head that we need more from him? So those are just some names that I think the Magic are ready to make a decision on. Also, Terrence Ross and Gary Harris. Those are guys that you already know, hey, we know what we got. Who do we want to keep? Who do we want to trade? Let's make a move. So those are the only names that come to mind as far as the Magic maybe moving in a package individually come trade deadline time. Other than that, to your point, I don't see a big trade. I don't see the Magic pulling, a all-star caliber player to Orlando. Like, that's not going to happen. I think the big moves happen in the offseason for us, depending on how the draft plays out and how free agency plays out. But for now, I think we may see a minor move. The major move would be if we trade Mo Bamba. I think that will be considered major to some fans that like Mo Bamba, but that's about it.
Yeah, so we'll see. You hinted on Chuma. I mean, man, it's tough because he's an additional player that when he plays, he brings a lot to the second unit. So we'll be missing him out for a little bit longer. Jonathan Isaac, there's still no word on when he'll return. The guesstimate that we had was the 20th, but with him playing yesterday, they're not going to play him back to back, so we know that that's not going to happen. But the great news is that he did play a little more basketball in yesterday's game. It looks like they up his minutes. I believe he played about 21, 22 minutes around that mark. So the fact that he went from 15 to above 20 is a really, really good sign. If that's the case, then I'm okay with him staying at Lakeland a little bit longer. It's not just him playing 15 minutes every single game. It's being able, if it's truly about conditioning, then let's up the minutes that he's playing so that he can be conditioned. Like, that makes sense to me, right? This game was 22, maybe the next game's 25, 30, so on and so forth. Because by the time that he joins, joins us, like, those minutes are going to go back down, and then he has to get adjusted to the elite level. So it's a plus side, and I think that I'm still standing on him coming back in January.
I mean, I know we heard from Dante in the radio show that he does every Magic Drive Time. I think he mentioned yesterday or Wednesday, actually, that he believes that sometime next week, whether it's against the Celtics on Monday or against Indiana on Wednesday, he expects maybe to see J.I. then. He wasn't speaking I heard from the front office or I heard from Coach Mosley. He just, like we're doing, he's just throwing some dates that make sense. We all thought it was going to be tonight against the Pelicans. That's not going to happen. Again, he played yesterday with Lakeland. But I did want to ask you, what were your thoughts on his last two games specifically? So same minutes on Saturday, but he scored 14 points, 9 rebounds, 2 blocks. And then last night, 18 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 blocks. Got it going towards the end of that game and ended up with some good numbers. But what are you seeing from J.I.? Are you confident that if he gets called up, say Monday, you feel good in saying, hey, let's give this kid 12 minutes and just throw him out there and get things going?
Yeah, I'm not with Jonathan Isaac. I'm not looking at shooting efficiency. I'm not looking at 3-point field goal percentage. Like, for me is how does he look? And to me, he's moving normal. He's being active. We've seen the defensive instincts. We've seen him block shots. We've seen him grab rebounds. What's the one thing that the Magic are really, really struggling with? Rebounds. So he would definitely help with that. In my opinion, man, he's still like he's so much bigger than everyone else. Like, before, he was big, but you can tell that he has a more mature body now. Like, he has a man's body now. So I feel like strength alone, I'm excited to kind of see what that looks like, because we've seen him in Lakeland. Like, he's aggressive. He's really aggressive. He's looking for a shot. He's looking to get involved. He's looking to make an impact. And I can't see him like not doing that. Like, I feel like that's the only way that he knows how to play basketball now. Like, granted, he hasn't played in 2.5 years, so what type of basketball does he know how to play? I get that, but I feel like that's just his mentality is going to be like going in. He wants to prove to himself that he can stay healthy, that he can still make an impact after being gone for so long. And I think that that's the biggest thing that I've taken away from his stint in Lakeland is he looks good. He doesn't look like he's been injured. He doesn't look like he's been. If you're comparing Jonathan Isaac now from Jonathan Isaac from the last time he played, you can say, okay, that's not the same Jonathan Isaac. He's still working back from his injury. But if we're removing that completely and you're just focusing on the basketball player of this game, you're looking at a crazy elite basketball player that is killing it right now. Whether it's G League or not G League, I don't care. For that game, for that basketball game, he's playing really, really good basketball. And I think that, kudos to him, because I'm sure that, he's definitely excited for the next steps, as we all are.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the biggest takeaway is the instincts. You see the shot blocking instincts are still there. Defensive instincts are still there. He's poking the ball away from players. So that aggressiveness on defensive end has not gone anywhere. And that's crucial, because that's who he is supposed to be. He's supposed to be a great defender first. Everything else is a plus. So the fact that he has that mentality, he's not afraid to throw his body around, go for shots as he tries to block them, that's huge. And the fact that he's bumping bodies inside and willing to, go into the lane and go for dunks, that's a good sign as well. To your point, can we compare him to the J.I. from 5 years ago, 4 years ago? Not quite yet. But I will say, when he wants the ball, he's getting the ball a lot in Lakeland, because obviously they're trying to feature him when he's on the court. He's going for it. He's going for his mid-range shots. He's going for the 3-point shots. He took 6 3-pointers. Only hit 1, unfortunately, but he's taking the shots. He's not afraid. You want to see that. That means that in practice, in warm-ups, he's hitting those, and he's confident in the fact that he can make those. So if you ask me, let's see a little bit more of that. Now, Do we see him next week? Let's see. We got 3 home games at home, I believe. We got tonight. Pelicans doesn't count. Next week we got, what is it? We got Celtics, Pacers, and Bulls next Saturday. So we have 3 home games next week. I don't know if I'm willing to put money yet on this, but I will say I think we see J.I. at some point next week. I think it's long overdue. If it doesn't happen, my little assumption is they're waiting for the trade deadline to clear out some roster spaces so that then when he is back, he has a defined role and he's good to go. Whether that means Mo Bamba's role, whether that means, I don't know. But the point is, I think if he's not back next week, they may hold off until after the trade deadline to kind of say, hey, now you can come back. This is your role. You're good to go from now on.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see, man. I would bet money that it's next week. It's just the only thing that makes sense to me.
I
You
hope
want to
so.
put money on it? Are we putting money on it? We'll talk about that off air.
Yeah.
But I do believe that he'll be coming next week. So tonight against the Pelicans, Markelle, non-COVID illness, and Franz with a sprained ankle that he suffered during practice will both be a game time to sit. 4 days off, man. 4 days off, and we're already down 2 players. It's the most Orlando Magic thing I've ever seen in my life. Tomorrow against the Wizards, and we have Monday Celtics, and Wednesday we have the Indiana Pacers. So Pelicans, Wizards, Celtics, Pacers. Pelicans I really liked. I really enjoyed, like, if we're selecting like that West Coast team that you're rooting for, I know you're rooting for Golden State. Pelicans for me would be that team that I would root for in the playoffs for the West Coast. I really like what they're doing over there. And then the Wizards, Celtics, Pacers is going to be fun to see if we get any shenanigans from Eddie House for that Celtics game.
That's right. So, I mean, what are your predictions? What are you hoping for to see this week?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to go 2-2. Yeah, if we can break even, that'd be great. Just to kind of prevent us from any type of losing streak. I would love to do maybe a win against Wizards and Celtics would be cool. Those would be the two that I would hang my hat on.
That's what I'm hoping for. I got a little bit different. I'm thinking Pelicans, and then we beat the Pacers on Wednesday. But to your point, keep playing 500 basketball, keep kind of staying in the race.
Yep.
We have dipped a little bit. We're 4.5 games now out of the 10th seed. So we're those 2 losses really hurt us in Denver and Utah because the Bulls have won back-to-back games. And then don't forget, we see the Bulls next Saturday here in Orlando. So that'll be Vooch returning to Amway, but also we're right behind them in that play-in tournament. Hopes that we still have alive. So hopefully we're not going to lose a streak here, because if we do, we may be, a little bit too far now to keep our hopes alive for the play-in. I want to keep that going till the end of the year.
Absolutely. Man, really good stuff. I feel like this hour went by really, really fast. I appreciate everyone for joining the HQ on this podcast episode. It was a pleasure, a lot of fun. On that note, it's a wrap. Catch you guys next week.
For all the latest Magic news and updates, visit OrlandoMagicHQ.com and follow us on Instagram at Orlando Magic HQ and on Twitter at OMagicHQ. Also, remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel and subscribe and leave a 5-star review on your favorite listening platform.